Hey everybody, it's Cameron here. For those of you who might be watching this video and don't know me, I am one of the co-founders of a company called TechnoTutor, where we're creating financial freedom through education. And what I want to talk about today is the point of why your vocabulary is your enslavement. A lot of times when you see my posts or my videos or things that I write, I'm always talking about how your vocabulary is the key to success and things like that. And when I say success, I mean in every area of your life. More money, better relationships, etc. So the title of this video might seem kind of surprising in the context of all of that. But let me clarify what I mean. I want to start with a story. Okay. I was watching a Netflix video recently there's a TV show on Netflix called Dairy Girls, and in the show it's set in Northern Ireland, and as part of the soundtrack they use a lot of like either Irish or British bands and music and so forth for the soundtrack, and it's set in the 90s, so they use stuff from that time period. Well, as I'm listening to it, there was this song by the Cranberries, and they used some of their a few of their songs throughout the show, and that got me wanting to look more at the Cranberries and some of their other music and so forth. So I started listening to it, and I started listening to some of the songs that were popular when I was younger, back in the 90s, and I really liked it. I really liked that singer. I forget her name at the moment, but you can look her up. She's a really great singer. She passed away I think earlier this year or last year. And anyways, as I was listening to the music, I realized that I was enjoying the music. Now, that may not seem surprising, except for the fact that this band, and specifically the songs I was listening to, were super popular back when I was younger, like in middle school and I think early high school. And the reason why that's significant, the fact that I was enjoying those songs, is because that period of my life was, from an emotional perspective, and at least how I felt at the time, one of the most difficult periods of my life. Because when I was 7 years old, my mom divorced my stepfather. Well, he was my adopted father, actually. He was my stepfather and then became my adopted father. She divorced him, and then she moved away and left me and my half-brother with my adopted father. And my adopted father took the responsibility of taking care of me and everything, and then eventually found a girlfriend who then became his wife, who became my stepmother, and then we eventually moved in with them, and we had a totally different life than I had before. And it's due to that I was able to go to a very elite private school, and so a lot of things unfolded in my life from there. So I'm in no way saying it was actually a bad thing, but from the perspective of how I experienced myself, obviously my mom had left, and I was living at my grandparents, and then I was living at my dad's, and now with a new stepmom who already had a daughter, plus I had a half-brother. And it wasn't necessarily their fault, I'm not blaming them, but I always felt like I wasn't really one of their children. I always felt like I was just someone who they had to take care of, and they may have felt that way too, and I wouldn't blame them for that, just because I understand where they're coming from and everything. Of course, that doesn't justify anything or make it acceptable, but my point is, this isn't about just me trying to get pity, is my point, but to give context as to my emotional state at the time. And so in that time period, without going into all the details, there's a lot of just instability going on in my life. I was punished a lot for things that I didn't really understand why I was being punished for, just things that I would say or do that from my perspective weren't a big deal, but I would get punished, and I just felt like I wasn't really, I kind of felt like sort of a prisoner in a way, even though there wasn't anything ostensibly going on, although there's other things I probably won't mention right now, but there was a lot of just negative things that were occurring in my life at the time. And the reason why I'm explaining all that is because that band, the Cranberries, was really popular at the time. And so later in life, not now, but later after that point in life, every time those songs would come on the radio, and other stuff around that time period too that was popular at the time, but also these ones, I would just feel like so negative, and I would feel like I felt back in that time period, which is just not good. And so it's like if that song was on the radio, I'd want it turned off, or if it was in the room, I'd want to leave the room or something, And it just made me feel all that emotional turmoil and instability and everything that I felt at the time. And the reason why it's significant is because as I was listening to that music and kind of exploring it a little bit, like a few weeks ago, because I'm a big fan of music. I don't listen to a lot of music all the time. I used to be very obsessed with music when I was younger, but I still enjoy music. And so I was, exploring some of their songs and everything and listening to them. And even the songs that I didn't like because of this experience that I was talking about, I realized are really great songs and I was enjoying them. And I realized that I didn't have, that those feelings didn't come up. It's like I was aware that I used to associate this music with certain feelings, but I didn't actually feel that way anymore when listening to it. So in other words, I was actually able to enjoy the music. And because it's actually really great, like good quality and good songwriting and all of that. And so it just kind of, it's not that I don't already understand these points, but it was just such a clear representation of the fact that this really difficult, challenging time in my life didn't really have any emotional draw anymore. Because even when I started realizing this point, and I started reflecting on that time period in my life, it was just like, yeah, that happened to me, and I felt that way at the time, but here's a lot of things that came out of it, and also I'm just not controlled by that anymore. Those emotions, they're not inside of me anymore. It's like I have a memory of it, but the memory doesn't have any power anymore. I don't feel that way anymore. I'm not that same person anymore. I'm not that weak anymore. But the bigger, broader point, so I just wanted to illustrate that point of how feelings and thoughts and emotions can be associated with just a song. Like hearing the song triggers all of those feelings. So it's kind of like that those sounds are like, and the words and the tones and everything are like inside your body with all of these memories and everything stored within it. And the song itself had nothing to do with what I was feeling at the time. It was just happening at the same time. So they became linked within me. And it's a testament to the process that I've walked, although it's obviously not the only benefit that I've seen from walking this process of redefining my vocabulary and clearing my vocabulary and reestablishing and re-educating myself and so forth. It's obviously not the only benefit I've seen is that I can enjoy the Cranberries, but it's just a very clear example of how emotions and feelings and thoughts can be stored within sounds. And why is that really important for you to understand, especially if you have children, but even for yourself as an adult, is that when you're in the first 7 years of your life, especially the first, let's say 3 to 4, you don't already know anything. So everything you're hearing is all fresh. It's all new. And so for example, when I heard that Cranberries song back then, it was brand new. And that's why it got stored with those emotions. So when you're a child and you're in an environment where, let's say, your parents yell at you, or they punish you, or they're always slapping your hands, or they're just neglecting you, or they're putting you in school, or they're putting you in daycare, and you feel like people aren't listening to you. You're not getting the attention and the care that Katie and I give to our children because we know what we're doing. So it's not about blaming your parents, it's just understanding that 99.9% of people, if not all, grow up in an environment where they're not really valued completely, fully. And so you develop this feeling of like not being good enough, and you develop some level of feeling like neglected. And this is all at the same time that you are learning words for the first time. And so as you're learning all the basic words that are going to form the like 85 to 90% of the foundation of your entire vocabulary, it's all happening at the same time that you're having this childhood experience of really not getting what you need. And I know for many people, you're going to have this cognitive dissonance come up of like, oh, I had a great childhood and my parents love me and all this stuff. But the reality is you're still struggling in your life. You still have emotional problems. You still fight and argue with your spouse. Your kids still argue with you. You're not financially free. And this is really what it comes down to, is why your vocabulary is such an important indicator of your ability to create not only just income, but financial freedom for yourself, financial abundance. Because you're afraid of taking risks. You don't understand what risk really is. And so you'll probably not ever going to be mega successful in your life, when that's really what you want. Like, if someone could snap your fingers and every day you could have $50,000 a month just coming into your bank account with no effort required, wouldn't you want that? Wouldn't you want that? The problem is you have to create that. That's what an entrepreneur does, who understands these principles. And that's what the mega wealthy, the elite, understand, is the principle of cash flow, is the principle of having assets that give you passive income, essentially, but other types of income all the time without you really having to focus on it. Although it's not to say you don't have to put any focus, but you certainly aren't spending like a 9-to-5 job on those points. A lot of times what these people are focusing on is finding out ways to take the money out of certain things and use it again to create more. And they're not constantly like juggling plates, they're putting things in place and then creating more. Whereas everybody else, it's like you're constantly spinning plates and trying to keep them going and keep everything from falling down. And so what we end up doing, because we have these experiences in life of insecurity and instability, and we're told from our parents and from our environment and from the school system that making mistakes is bad, because if you make a mistake on a test, it's on your permanent record. You don't want to make mistakes. And so we have a fear of making mistakes and a fear of risk, a fear of failing. And the problem is you can't start a business unless you're not afraid of failing, because 90% of all businesses fail within the first 5 years. So what that means is you're probably going to have to, on average, try 10 times before you get it right. So if you're afraid of failing, you're going to give up the first or second or third or fourth or fifth, when you could have just kept going and you would have succeeded. So if you think about it, all of this, like the fear of failure, the fear of punishment, the fear of rejection, the fear of authority, and here's a big one. When your parents lie to you about the existence of Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, and the Tooth Fairy, the fear of authority being that you can't trust authority, even though they determine whether you survive. So it's like this mistrust of authority, and yet a blanket acceptance of authority as having control and power over your life. It's all of this stuff mixed together while you're learning all the words for the first time that are going to form the foundation of your life and your education and your ability to learn more. All of that memory, all of that context is stored in every word, 95% of the words that you use on a daily basis. So when you're thinking and when you're speaking and people are talking to you and all those words are being used, they're all triggering at a subconscious, unconscious level all the trauma that you've experienced as a child. And so you're constantly reliving all of the insecurity of your childhood in every moment. So when you have to go outside of your comfort zone and take a risk and basically be in an unstable point, you have no foundation to stand on, because your foundation is all of this mental instability, emotional instability. So your vocabulary is, in essence, right now, what is currently keeping you where you're at, because it's got all of this extra stuff like viruses stored in it that are constantly presenting firewalls for you to not be able to focus properly and be able to do what is required for you to create actual stability in your life. And obviously the primary point would be financial stability, because everything you're doing currently right now is just for money. 99% of what you do currently is for money in some form or fashion. And the restrictions that you feel in your life is due to not having enough money. The lack of time and your lack of health are all due to that at some level. So how do you change it? What do you do about it? Well, you need to go through every single word in your vocabulary and clear it out and make sure there's no viruses and emotions and all this stuff and thoughts. Your thoughts are not actually your own. There's this really great saying that if your attitude is right, the facts don't count. You can hear it from Kevin Trudeau. And I don't even know if he's the one who came up with it. Probably not. But he talks about it in Your Wish is Your Command. And it's a great statement. He says the reason why is because most of what people call facts are really just opinions. Well, I'm going to give you a deeper understanding of that. Your thoughts are opinions. Every single thought that goes through your mind is an opinion, because the thoughts are coming from your vocabulary, and it's coming from all of the memories that you have. And you didn't grow up in an environment where everybody was explaining every little detail and aspect of everything perfectly clearly, so that you have a 100% grasp on exactly how every aspect of, from the subatomic level, how reality actually works and functions. And so your entire vocabulary, entire foundation for how you think is based on just information that was put into you. which is your words, which is through words and sounds and information and memories and experiences. And it's all stored as sounds and words in your body. And now when you think, you're actually just listening to the opinions of other people that came before you, that programmed you as a child. It just sounds like it's in your voice because you eventually, as a child, started adopting what they were saying and saying it to yourself. Now it sounds like it's your voice, but where did all the information come from? Other people. So your own thoughts, your own feelings, like how you feel about something, like how I felt about listening to those songs by the Cranberries, was an opinion based on how I was feeling at the time, which was an environment that was created by someone other than myself, my parents, etc. So for me to think that I have the facts about that song is completely false. To think that you have the facts about anything when it comes from a thought, you have to understand your thoughts are not coming from you just because they're in your voice and just because you're the only one who can hear them. They're not actually individual to you. You probably share the exact same 99% thoughts as everybody else, if not 100%. The only reason you have maybe different thoughts than somebody else is just because they had a different life experience. But they came from the same country, the same culture, so most of what they're thinking is going to be the same as what you're thinking. Well, if your thoughts can't be trusted and your feelings and your emotions can't be trusted, how can you trust yourself? And that's why most people fear risk, because they know they don't trust themselves. And they know that if they try to reach out to a higher level, it's not going to work. They don't trust themselves. They don't know what they need to know. So they sabotage themselves in subconscious, unconscious, and even sometimes conscious ways. So their vocabulary, because that's their thoughts, starts to tell them, oh, you can't do that, or do this instead, or don't do that, or this person's trying to get you, or this person's trying to do this, or something like that. And you end up screwing up whatever opportunity came to you. And then you end up trusting yourself even less. So your vocabulary, which is the words that you're hearing inside your head and that you're speaking, so the limitation of your ability to express and communicate is obviously going to limit you. But I'm talking about the way you think about things, the way you consider things, how you think about them, and the emotions that go along with it. All of that is your vocabulary as well. And all of that was formed in the first 7 years of your life when you were not even conscious of the process. Really, in the first 4. You were not conscious of it. Most of your vocabulary was established at a point where you didn't even have the ability to think, because you don't develop the ability to think, as the research has proven, until 5, 6, 7, to really fully think like you think as an adult. You don't develop that ability till later, because you have to have a certain level of vocabulary before you can even do that. It's like computers didn't even have monitors when they first were invented. They literally didn't even have monitors. You couldn't even see anything on the screen because there wasn't enough information to be able to display that kind of stuff. Had to develop to a certain point before they could even be able to display information on a screen. And then it was just like a green cursor with green letters on a black background, to the point where it is now. But that's only because the vocabulary of the computer has increased due to our ability to put more information on the computer hard drive and on the microchip. So it's the same thing with your vocabulary. Now, children are developing this point sooner and sooner because of the increase of information as the acceleration age compounds and accelerates. But that's not a good thing, because mostly what they're being exposed to is apps and YouTube and a bunch of bullshit that's just designed to turn them into consumers. And if you're a consumer, how can you be a creator? In other words, your entire vocabulary makes you believe that the way to be happy is to consume things, is to buy things and purchase things. So you're not actually looking around at the world going, what can I create? What can I create of value? You're looking at, what can I get? What can I get? And how can we have a world of harmony, peace, and balance in a world where everyone's trying to get? Because as Jesus said, you have to give as you want to receive, not get. So the entire foundation of how you think and process information and everything is totally fucked. It's like you have a hard drive that's just totally corrupted and screwed up, and you don't even know because you weren't aware of every little sound, every little detail that was going on in your first 7 years of your life. You're not even aware of where the mistakes are, where the errors are, where the bugs are in the code, so to speak. So you have to have a way to systematically go through that and release yourself from all of those memories and emotions and thoughts and feelings, and establish yourself here as an absolute individual, self-directing yourself to do what is best for you and everyone else in every moment, because only in that situation where everyone is doing that will we have a world that's best for everybody. So it all begins with the individual's vocabulary, with your vocabulary. And we have a way to do this. We've already proven it. And you can see the results already showing from my son especially, because, why is he so important within all of this is because Katie and I are so specific. We're able to see everything that's going on, and we're able to limit what he's exposed to and what he's not exposed to a very large degree, not 100%, because the moment we walk out the front door, of course, there's all these people around. So we have to be very specific with how we support him, so that he's developing the right memories within his body, so that he's not feeling, while he's learning all the basics of his foundation, he's not feeling like he's worthless. So we are very specific within having him feel and know that he is valuable. And so the reason why I hesitate when I say believe is because it's not a belief. He is valuable. And everyone is valuable equally. But we believe that we're not because of the experiences we have, which then start speaking to us in our own voice, which is our vocabulary. So your vocabulary is not actually you. Though your thoughts are not you. Your vocabulary is from somebody else. You didn't pick and choose and decide what each word means and how it's going to play out in your life and how you're going to live based on how you receive information. You're just reacting like a pre-programmed robot. But we have the tools to be able to fix this. And that's Technotutor and the Destiny Eye process. And really, I'm going to suggest that you can't do one without the other. Especially if you want to really solve the problem for yourself, you have to have both together. If you try to do one or the other, you won't. Number one, Destiny Eye process is going to explain to you how your mind functions in detail. The stuff that your parents didn't teach you. But Technotutor is the tool that is going to allow you to actually get access to all the memories inside of you and the vocabulary and all the words and the sounds and everything to actually get access to it, to be able to change it. It's like you can't change what's on the computer screen by trying to manipulate the stuff on the screen only. You have to go into the hard drive. So Technotutor gives you access to the hard drive. Destiny is the curriculum to understand how you actually function. So check out both. And I'm going to leave it at that because my headphone battery is dying. All right, everybody. Put some comments, some questions if you have any, and we'll see you on the next one.